Erev Yom Tov, the Siyat D'Shmaya, the big night tonight, Tu B'Shvat, and looking forward to sharing it in a tremendously meaningful way, the Siyat D'Shmaya. We're moving through these days of Shovim now, and we want to maximize every single minute that we have right now. So let's learn, go right inside. Shemus u'machshavas kadoshas. We're up to the Shemus. How can we experience you, Hashem, in such a real and meaningful way? So we've been given a secret. One of the secrets is that the deepest connection that a person can have with Hashem is through something called the Shemus, Yichudim. Yichudim means to become one with something. When something becomes one, there's a deep connection there because they became one. When two things are very, very far apart, there's no connection. When something is so connected that it becomes one, that's a very, very deep, powerful relationship. That's what we're going for. So, when it comes to God, we're talking about an infinite being connecting to a finite being. So how do we do that? I mean, how do we make such a deep connection that the infinite and the finite can unify? That's an unbelievable connection indeed. So the answer is that God implanted certain energy into the world that if we hold on to this, we get into that conscious space where we can attach ourselves to Hashem. And I'll explain. He's going to say right now. A very, very important part of our Avodas Hashem, shel zakos lahasig lahargish es mitzias Hashem yisborach bebihirisi lachshoiv alav yisborach. We have to think about Hashem. V'yargel es atzmei b'machshavos kadoshas, to think about Hashem in our mind. And you might say, but how do we do that? Hashem is not physical. Lachshoiv es Hashem yisborach. Lahargish shehu nimtza itanu kol hazman. We want to think that Hashem is with us at all times. So now we're not talking about a physical thought. God forbid, God's not physical. But we're thinking in a spiritual concept how God is with us. He's guiding us. V'yisboinen al kach shemala kol haaretz kavoday. Hashem, you fill the whole world. You fill this world. There's not like there's a world and then Hashem is not here. There's, Hashem, and there's this world. There's another thing called the world. There's Hashem, yeah, you're way up there. Like the God in the sky. And don't do anything bad because he might throw a lightning bolt at you and burn you. Hoo-ah. Which is how many people grew up, believing that God is the big bad man in the sky with a gray beard. And you have to grovel to serve him. And if not, lightning bolt. Zeo. So the answer is no. That's not the truth. It might have worked for Hallmark or these card companies that have to have some imagery, but that's not the emes. The emes is that the truth is that God is not only that he's beyond the worlds. Yes, God is infinite. But God takes residence in this world. A lot of that is going to be discussed tonight in Tu B'Shvat, is that God comes down into this world, and how we're going to have to relate to that is that, yes, there's an infinite God who's beyond all definition, all border, because infinite means that there's no definition and border. That same God comes into the world, into a world of border, of multiplicity of definition, and is not limited by it. How does he do that? Through the different shemus. Through the way that God is creating the world through different names. And through the names, both of God and the names of everything in creation, which are ultimately coming out of the names of God, all of creation is coming into existence through those names. Which means if God was not thinking about this table for 1 second, it would cease to exist. If God was not thinking about a mountain, the mountain would cease to exist. If God was not thinking about helping us to earn a living, we would not be able to. And we want to be able to connect that even while I'm in this world making a living, looking at the mountain or looking at this table, I realize that God is here every single second. Now, why is that so important? Because it makes you never feel alone. That God is always here and He's interested in us. And it's also the truth of existence. So let's go in a little deeper. And He's going to start to explain it. V'shehu mahava hakol u'machaya hakol. Hashem makes everything and gives life to everything every single second. Hashem, your light. Your light means your interest. Your relationship with creation allows the creation should exist. There's not you and then there's a creation which is totally a separate thing running on its own. It's your interest in creation that's keeping creation going. Which means, is creation completely dependent on the Creator? Completely, so deeply that for 1 second you can't have a creation operating without the Creator. That makes sense? Can God exist without the creation? Vada. Can the creation exist without God? Not for a moment. Which means the creation is totally dependent on God. Right? Now the fact that the creation is totally dependent on God, it means that I want to understand how that works. I want to understand how God is creating and putting life force into the creation every single second. And you could see here how there is an opportunity to falter. What would be the other option? Because there always has to be free will. And that's something we've spoken about so many times. We are set up in a world where there's always a free will decision to be made. What would be the free will decision of looking at this table? What are the 2 ways to see this table? And we're going to see all the hundreds of fruits tonight. All right, there's like hundreds. So either the first way I look at it, this fruit's a fruit. There's nothing else to be said. It was picked off a tree and it's just sitting there on the table. What does it have to do with God? It's just a fruit. And then whether God likes it or not, the fruit's right there. Whether God likes it or not, this table is right here. You know? What's He going to do about this table? That's option number 1. That's the erroneous option. The correct option is that apple and this table and the mountain and you and I only exist because God is sending energy into us through the holy names every single second, enlivening us, which means God is paying attention to us every single second. And if He wasn't interested in giving life to us every single second, then we wouldn't have woken up today. And there'd be no apples, there'd be no tables, there'd be no nothing. Existence only works when Hashem is giving it existence. As opposed to, like the Balatanya says, those who make terrible mistakes and they think that God made the world something from something. Something from something means like somebody who makes a golden goblet. We'll go with gold today. I was going to say silver, but gold is just so much more geschmack. And expensive. Satmarov had a golden goblet. If you can afford one. Ashrecha. A silver goblet will cost you $1,000. A gold one will cost you $100,000. That's a lot of ounces of gold to make a chazanish shiur. That's so I'll call ponim. So you have a golden goblet. So the Balatanya says the fools of the world think that, the way God made the world, He took a bunch of gold and He molded it and He made it into a goblet and then God left. And the goblet sits there on the shelf and the goblet does no longer need the creator of the goblet. So the fools who assume that the world could just run on its own without God think that the world was created what's called something from something. Something from something. There was a bunch of gold, and then God took the gold and fashioned it. Even if you want to say there was a type of soup, and then God took the soup and He just organized the soup. But what's always the question for smart yeshiva guys? Where did the soup come from? Where did that come from? Abe, where'd the soup come from? Oh, we don't talk about that part. It just says it in the book. Well, why don't you talk about it? Because the man in the book wrote it like that. Who's the man in the book? What are his credentials? And why doesn't it make logical sense? Maybe the soup is strange that it didn't come from somewhere because it's finite. Finite can't create itself. So back to the fools. The fools will say that the world was created something from something because God took the gold, made a goblet, and then left. So the Baal Tanya says, you fools! If you think the world was created something from something, you missed everything. God didn't create the world something from something. He created the world something from nothing. There was nothing before. It was only God. God created the world from nothing. Nothing is what we call God, which is the greatest something. Before there was physical something, there was nothing. That's God. God from himself created the world, because finite can only come from infinite, because finite can't start itself. So God created the world from himself. He can do anything. He's God. He's infinite. But the way that finite works, coming from infinite, is it can't exist by itself. There's no such thing as a finite being creating, a finite being can create something and then walk away. An infinite being doesn't make things and walk away. An infinite being, everything about the finite exists within the infinite, is flowing from the infinite. So it's only because God's interest in the finite that the finite exists. What is the fabric of the finite really? The names. The names of God. That's why when you really get into stuff, you start learning God's names. That's where we're really going. A couple years in Eshet Torah we'll get that. That's where we're going with this. Okay? Everything that you look at in this world, you're seeing how Hashem is involved in it. There's nothing that's devoid of Hashem. Hashem is in every single situation. Bifrat. Specifically, tzarach lilnoid v'ladas. We need to learn and to know es haderech hanifla, the wondrous ways. Shegila Rabbeinu Arizal, like the Arizal, our great teacher, taught us. V'hi lachshav b'shemes hakadoshim. To think about God's names. Shezeo hadavar hanikra yichudim. These are called yichudim, unifications. The people who are wicked people of the world, I don't mean like wicked. I mean like evil. Nowadays, I think they said wicked also just means like bad again. In my day, a long time ago, that was like really good. I think it means evil again. It doesn't mean evil?
Wicked's like, oh, that's wicked.
Oh, it still is good. Or went back to bad and then went back to good again. It could be, in the meantime. I might not have noticed.
It's still really bad, though.
It's still really bad. At the end of the day, the etymology of the word is not good. It's bad. Maybe it means that whenever people say wicked, it's really like, it's bad how good it is. It's like, oh, it's so bad. Oh, you're killing me with how bad, how good it is. It's so bad. One day the world will just get back to like normal languaging. Have you noticed that language has degraded to such a degree that people don't even talk really anymore? They say like Russia Tavises, or just emojis. It's like a lack of just normal communication, or just like sounds, like grunts, and like the communication has taken a turn for the worse. It hasn't helped the last couple of years that people are not seeing each other face to face so much. We need to help fix that. Ponim al ponim, to be able to have normal communication again, to see people, to communicate with people. It's very, very important. To pick up on social cues and facial expressions. Very, very important. My mother, who's been a principal and a superintendent for many, many years, has been working with kids for so long. So she says that, especially the girls, Guys, also, the younger generation doesn't know how to talk so much anymore. They just text each other. They don't know normal communication. Like I'm saying, little girls, because they all have phones, and they don't have healthy conversations. They need to relearn how to play as like kids. It's sad. It's sad. So much of what's going on is killing the kids. We need to really help. So the Torah is all about communication, healthy communication. And the ultimate communication is that a person comes into communication where he starts to communicate with God. It's the ultimate communication. Kuf Yud Ches, look at the bottom. V'aderech ech lachsha b'shemasi. Amen. What do? You begin to picture one of God's names in your mind. Like when you see things in a dream, you see it in your mind, right? You see the concepts, you see it in your mind. Like you could see Yud Kei Vav Kei in your mind. There are some people who, like Ichimayer and others, that they literally see the letters. They see them, Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Tomi. They see mamish, the letters of God. Like we said, it takes more than a few minutes in yeshiva to get to this. And they walk around, all they see is the names, because when you look at this table, that's what this table is God's names. When the Tzemach Tzedek, Mendele, in the Balatanya, when he was on his deathbed, he was lying there and he was looking up at the rafters on the ceiling, and he said, Mendele, what do you see when you look up? He said, I see beams, I see rafters, Zaidi. He said, what do you see? He said, I see the Hebrew letters of a Kuf, Vav, Reish, Hey, Koira. I see Hashem shining the Hebrew letters and bringing the ceiling beams into creation at this very moment. I see the letters of creation. I know it sounds like Matrix stuff. I see creation being created through the different names. And ultimately all those come back to names of God. It all gets traced back to names of God. So when a person sees the names of God, they're connecting with existence and the one who's creating existence. Lebedik. Even colors. I see everything. So many people are able to do this and many people have a hard time with this. But just so you know, You know what's available. You don't need any LSD. You don't need any psychedelics. If you really learn Torah, you get visuals, colors, images. You get the whole thing. Lucid. You get DMT and way more without the downers. You get pineal gland activation. Pineal obviously is pene el, the face of God. You start activating real pineal energy, as opposed to being calcified. Now the fluoride. They put fluoride in the water, Chevra, and they claim it's for your teeth. Therefore we have to know you don't actually have to see the letters. This is just part 1 today. You don't have to see the letters. If you do, then you must be basically one of the chosen ones. And what we are talking about is being able to see and feel the energy of that name. A letter. Close your eyes and imagine a yud. Even if you don't see the yud, but I know what a yud looks like. I'm thinking of the yud. I feel the yud. I can understand what the yud is a code word for something very, very profound. The yud is a hollow chamber that light is coming through. The letters are like the vessels of this whole world, just like this world is a vessel. But the light is coming through the vessels. Just like the purpose of your house is not that you should just own a house. The purpose of the house is what you put in the house. Is your family. Is your loving relationship with your wife. Is your kids. Is the Playmobil. Is the warm kite inside the house. You don't just buy a house to have a house. You buy a house to put things in the house. The purpose of this world is like a big house. It's not just to be a physical structure. It's in order to bring light, bring the purpose into the house. That's called God's light. That's what the Hebrew letters are. Hebrew letters are like the house that are channels for God's light to come into the world. Okay, this is part 1. We're looking forward to Siyat D'Shmaya tonight, the tremendous iris of Tu B'Shvat, L'Shana Le'ilan HaYedua, to fix the chait of Adam and Chava in Gan Eden, and that we should all eat from the Eitz HaChaim. Amen. Kol Tu. Lebedik.